while since we took a look at a Moebius Battlestar Galactica kit, because frankly it's been a while since they've released any. Most everything they've done over the past year and a half or so has been based on the original series. You know, your original Galactica, your original Viper, original Cylon Raider, etc. Still waiting on a base star. Don't think they've done one of those yet. But yeah, so they've kind of left New Galactica behind for a while, and that's not terribly surprising. They've done most of the major ships. They've done the Galactica herself, the Mark 7, the Cylon Raider, the Pegasus. What's left to do? Well, they've just gone and released 2 new kits just in this past month from New Galactica. One of them is a 72nd scale Viper Mark 2. It's actually a 2-pack. And this. The one I've been waiting for since they first announced that they got the license to do the line in the first place. I've wanted a Colonial One for a very long time. So, let's crack this thing open and see what we got. Box is a bit smaller than most of your typical Galactica kits. It's about the same width, more or less, but a lot narrower, because the Colonial One is a much smaller ship. Now, it's the same style as all the other New Galactica kits, except for the fact that, like their classic Galactica kits, they've applied this kind of paint effect Photoshop filter over the photo of the model on the cover of the box, and that just drives me crazy. It's a little bit more subtle than on their classic Galactica kits, but the very fact that they've done that at all just bugs me, because their earlier kits, the Galactica herself, the Pegasus, etc., none of them had that. They were just a straight Photoshop photo or a CG render of the ship, and that was great. I don't know why they insist on doing that, because it looks terrible, but whatever. Box back. Most of the Galactica kits that I can recall, this color text is usually on like a separate piece of paper that's like stuck to the back panel. Oftentimes there's like a space graphic that you can use as a diorama backdrop, whereas in this case this color text is actually printed directly on the box. A little bit of information about the class of ship herself, how she became the Colonial One, a little bit of detail about the model assembly, some co-cells, curiously omitting the Cylon Centurion and the Cylon Raider. Also curious that they still haven't done a New Galactica version of the base ship. Actually, I haven't done one for either series yet, so that's kind of a bummer. And then there's this large photo of the completed model, showing off some of its details, like optional landing gear, includes striping decals, screen-accurate details. Not a lot to talk about with the Colonial One. Doesn't have a lot of fancy, schmancy, cool features like the Galactica does. We got a pair of matching runners here, so we'll just take a look at one. These would appear to be the blast shields for the rear engines. This kit is molded in 3/50th scale, so it's your standard, you know, naval or starship type scale. There's a lot of kits done like that. My big Enterprise is 3/50th scale, so this would actually display fairly well with that if it weren't for the fact, obviously, that they're completely different universes. Detail is okay. It's a little bit. There's a little bit of texture to a couple of the parts, but overall, it's fairly average detail. We got parts of your engine outrigger ring, whatever you want to call it. Not really sure. It's kind of a roll bar, similar to the Miranda class from Star Trek, the class that the Reliant from Star Trek II belonged to. And some other add-on details. Not really sure what any of them are. We've got the standard Moebius Models base, 2 parts, clear, and a few extra clear parts for windows. These would appear to be the only windows that come with the ship. All of the rest are probably just recessed details, so I would guess these would be the cockpit windows, and these might be some kind of like rear lounge area. Hard to say, but Here we've got kind of the dorsal side hump, whatever you call it, the spine of the ship, the superstructure, whatever it is you want to call it. This one piece was loose in the bag, but here you can see these would be the pilot's windows, and I guess these would be the lounge at the back of the ship that's never actually seen on screen in the series that I can recall. Very little of Colonial One is ever actually seen on screen besides just the main passenger deck. I believe in the pilot of the series, the cargo area is viewed in a couple of scenes, which, interestingly enough, it was the car deck of a BC Ferries ship. They had rented for the production. And I guess they had probably intended to use one for the series as well, but there was just no cause for it. So they just never had to film on the cargo deck of the Colonial One anymore. So there was no need for it. But it was neat for me because I'm from BC. I've taken BC ferries. I've been on that car deck more times than I can count. So it's a neat little bit of trivia for me. Our main fuselage. Interesting that it's a top and bottom half rather than like a side to side. So we've got lots of molded in windows. This is actually a pretty big ship. I'm surprised. At 350th scale, this thing's about it looks like it's about a foot long. Probably when it's assembled, maybe a little bit longer than that. Which obviously would put that at about 350 feet long. It's a pretty good size. There's a lot of windows, a lot of space. I think this is the area that you would normally see on the show. I recognize the window pattern because it was designed to look from the inside like Air Force One, obviously, with the name Colonial One. It's supposed to be evocative of that. But the whole ship is kind of designed with similar livery as Air Force One. So it's kind of neat to see that design lineage carried on. In fact, the hump, the spine, the superstructure, whatever you want to call it, is designed to be evocative. Of a 747. The whole ship is kind of similar. It's like a 747 with no wings and big honking spaceship engines on the back. Anyway. So we've got lots more windows along the side here, lots along the top, lots of panel lines, molded detail, lots of raised panel detail. Interesting looking shape. Doesn't look like it'll be overly difficult to assemble. Good sturdy pegs for assembly, and looks like a good socket for the display base. The runner itself has got some flash, but the parts appear to be mostly clean. There's a little bit of flash along here, a little bit more along here, but not too bad. I'm a little disappointed, actually, being this is a brand new kit, there would be any flash at all on the kit parts, but whatever. Finally, last runner. I'm guessing these are all engine parts, and I think these are probably landing gear struts. Which are seen all of about 3 times in the course of the series when the ship is landed on New Caprica, and the 1 or 2 times that it's seen landing on the Galactica herself. Which, curious that they didn't do that more often. You'd think it would make more sense to carry the Colonial One on board the Galactica herself rather than let it be out exposed to possible attack, but whatever. Marking sheet. We've got lots of stripes, lots of painted logos and whatnot. Like I said before, the livery of the Colonial One is inspired by Air Force One. So lots of blue with the gold stripe and the Colonial seal, which, interestingly, was not present during the first 2 seasons. It was added either at the very end of season 2 or in season 3, because Colonial One was initially, I believe its call sign was Colonial Heavy 798 in the pilot. It was just a passenger liner that was carrying passengers to and from Galactica for her decommissioning ceremony. It was just an ordinary ship. But when the attack happened and Laura Roslin happened to be aboard and became the president, it became Colonial One, just the same way as any aircraft any Air Force aircraft carrying the President of the United States is automatically designated Air Force One. That's its call sign. Anyway, I keep getting off track with just random nonsense trivia. I'm sorry about that. But the printing looks to be really good. There's not a lot of small markings, but there's a couple of logos here that are printed quite small, and the fidelity of the printing is really good. In fact, the seal of the Colonial President, the seal of the Office of the President, it says Office of the President on the bottom in lettering that's about half a millimeter high, and it's perfectly well legible. Another point to mention, you may notice 4 logos here. One says Intersun, one says Eversun. Not totally sure why that is. I'm guessing maybe that Intersun and Eversun are like competing cruise lines, or maybe they're one is based on Caprica, one is based on another planet, and they're like sibling companies. I'm not really sure. Yeah, very, very, very nicely printed. Very well done. Before we get to the instructions, we have this little card. It says mid-size passenger liner, signed by Roger C. Taylor, I believe it says, designer of the ship for the series. He was one of the production designers of the show, and just some history of the design of the ship. And Richard C. Livingston. I'm sorry. Is a concept artist who designed a variety of ships and environments which appeared in Battlestar Galactica, blah, 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 blah. I'll have a copy of all of this text. I might post on my blog, which I will have linked somewhere down here if you want to read it. As well as, I'll try and throw in some photos as well of the unassembled kit. But it's a very nice, looks like a hand-drawn sketch with like inked-in lines and some subtle shading. Make a neat postcard. Would actually look really cool framed and posted on my wall. You can see, actually, in terms of scale, it's a little bit different from the actual ship. There's a lot more rows of windows. So this looks like it's probably would have been about double the size of the actual ship as it ended up in the series. You can see there's like 3 rows of windows along the sides of the ship, whereas the actual model has 2. So it looks like this would have had probably twice as many decks. As well, the windows relative to the length and size of the ship are a lot smaller, and you can't really even see the command deck windows or lounge windows anywhere. But it's always interesting to see kind of the changes in how a ship it appears from its original design to how it appears in media. And finally, our instructions. We've got the same black and white photo. It's the same style of instructions as most Galactica kits with the cut corners. I believe I've explained that little bit of trivia before, so I won't bother again. Assembly instructions start with main engines and the blast shield, blast guards, I think it calls them. There's options for extended or retracted. You would have to decide before assembly of the ship, because there's not really an option to install them afterwards because they're clamshelled in. Though, if you were careful, you could probably trim off that block and then insert them afterwards if you wanted to. Afterwards, then, assembly of the fuselage, top and bottom, rear bulkhead and thrusters. This calls it the conning tower, the hump on the deck of the superstructure. There's instructions for how to display with the landing gear extended versus retracted. It says for flight mode, cut extended leg off, so fairing fit right against the fuselage. Curious that they would design it that way. That's one extra step that doesn't really feel like it should be necessary, but whatever. And then finally, just your outboard engine components and etc. etc. Your engine roll bar and landing gear for the rear of the ship. And then final assembly, attachment of the roll bar and side engine components, and mounting the ship to its stand. And last page is the marking guide. Yeah, marking guide looks pretty simple. Paint and marking guide says lower hull light blue, upper hull white, and then labels everywhere. So that's her. So this is a pretty nice kit. Not super advanced or anything, you know, seems fairly basic. Basic assembly of it shouldn't take more than, you know, 20-30 minutes. But paint and markings and whatever, you know, take a little bit more time. It's the kind of thing that if I invested, you know, all my spare time into it, I could have it knocked out in about 4 or 5 days. Maybe closer to 10 if I'm, you know, being a little bit more sparing with the time I'm investing in it. But yeah, it's a nice kit. I like it. But I don't think I'm going to get a chance to build it for a while. It's probably just going to go on the pile with all the other stuff. All the other Galactica kits, the Batman kits, the Gundam kits that I've built. In fact, the only kits that I have built recently have been the ATST and the Astromech droids, which actually are freaking awesome. I shot a video talking about these a few days ago, and I never got around to posting it. But they're really, really nice kits. The ATST is great. It's got a surprising amount of articulation. It's the kind of thing you could actually make a stop-motion puppet out of if you knew what you were doing. And the Astromech droids are great. You know, they've got really cool accessories. They're really fun gimmicks. Their detail is fantastic. They're way better than the same scale Black Series R2-D2 that came out last year. Curiously, they're quite a lot bigger too. They're about half an inch taller, even though they're supposed to be the same scale, which is really odd. I don't really get why that is. But whatever. But yeah, this is kind of... I'm glad that I bought this because it's a really nice kit. I'm glad to take a look at it to kind of show it off. But it's going to be a while before I'm able to get it built because I'm working on another project that's kind of taking priority. And I don't remember if I did any videos about it, but back in January, I did a custom MLP figure for a friend of mine. It was a straight repaint of an existing figure to represent another character from the show that didn't have a figure yet. My friend, her name's Brittany, is a big Doctor Who fan, and there's already a figure of the character known as Dr. Hooves, but his companion Rose has a analog on the show called Roseluck, and there's no corresponding Roseluck figure. So I took an existing figure of a character with the same design but with different colors and repainted her and gave her to my friend. I'm working on another one though that's, let's just say it's a little bit more elaborate of a modification. I'm using the figure of the character Rarity as a base. Rarity is a white unicorn with a purple mane and tail, blue eyes. She's the fashionista. She's the drama queen of the series. And I'm turning her into a character called Sunset Shimmer, who appeared in the feature film Equestria Girls. And the antagonist is named Sunset Shimmer. And the two of them are kind of mirrors of each other. And Sunset Shimmer is one of my favorite characters from the show or the movies. And it's the fact that there's not a toy of her yet, or at least not a decent toy, a Funko toy, I mean, is inexcusable. So I've taken it upon myself to rebuild an existing figure into her, and it's coming along really well. If you want to see the progress I've made on her, I have started a second channel. For the moment, I'm just calling it FFM2. There will be a link right here or another one down there someplace. If you want to have a look at that, that's where I'm going to be posting all of my MLP related stuff. So any convention videos, any commentaries on episodes that I might do. I hosted a premiere party for the season 5 of the show premiere, and posted a lot of videos based on that. We did like a trivia, 3 rounds of MLP themed Jeopardy, and a video of us all watching the show and reacting and commenting on it. So all of that is down there, as well as the Sunset Shimmer custom. So if you want to see any of that, go down there or click the link that was up a minute ago. If you want to see any of my other updates, my social media, I'm fairly active on Twitter and on Tumblr these days. So you can go to those addresses, or you can click the links down there, because I can't, for some reason, I can't make those clickable external links. But yeah, so that project is kind of my priority. And I've been hammering along at that for the last several days. It's a big challenge. She's about, I would say, 75% done the physical modifications. But even after all of the physical changes, all of the resculpting that I'm doing, I'm using Sculpey to sculpt and carve her a new hairpiece and tailpiece. Once all that's done, then I've still got to paint her. So there's still a lot more work yet to go. So there's probably going to be another 2 or 3 videos just in that series alone. So if you want to see any of that, yeah, go take a look down below. If you don't, then you don't have to. You can just continue watching this channel. This is where I'll do all my other regular modeling stuff, or toy reviews, or normal vlogs, or whatever else, whatever other nonsense that I ever post here. So thanks everyone out there for watching, and happy modeling.
There must be some way out of here, said the Joker to the thief.